So thank you very much, Vishal,
Merci beaucoup, Vishal,
that you take the time to speak to us this evening.
de bien vouloir prendre le temps de nous parler ce soir.
And now the microphone is yours.
Et maintenant, le micro est à toi.
Thank you very much, Marcus. It is an honor to know you and to partner with you. I'm very grateful to the school for inviting me and to the church for partnering with the school. I'm hoping that this partnership will grow and this church will become a university Monday to Friday.
Et que cette église deviendra une université du lundi au vendredi.
You don't need to hire a lot of professors.
Vous n'avez pas besoin d'embaucher beaucoup de professeurs.
Because we'll make sure that Albert Einstein comes to your church to teach physics, and Shakespeare and Milton and Bunyan come here to teach English. They'll come online. So the world's best teachers will come online. Apostle Paul will come in your church on screen.
L'apôtre Paul viendra sur votre écran pour enseigner dans votre université, pour enseigner les épîtres aux Galates, aux Romains.
So that's the education revolution we will be discussing in February. Today, I want to paint a big picture of how 5 revolutions have created the modern world. And where does the French Revolution fit into all of that? The mistakes that France has made. I see your school as a seed.
Je vois votre école comme une semence.
A seed is a very powerful thing. A teacher who is teaching is planting seeds. Seed grows into plants and trees and produce a lot more seeds and produce forests. You might see your school as a very small effort, but you've invested 40 years in nurturing the plants.
Depuis 40 ans pour
And
pouvoir
I want to
nourrir cette
salute those
plante.
of you who have been supporting this initiative. And the reason I'm painting this big picture of history, to encourage you to really believe
À réellement croire
that your humble, simple struggles and efforts will actually make France a blessing to the whole world. So, as I was an undergraduate student in India, I was studying political philosophy.
J'étudiais la philosophie politique.
And we studied Rousseau, we studied the French Revolution. But actually, I was attracted to France only when I went to South Africa. I had a day off. I was teaching in Wyvam, but I had a day off. And we were taken to a village called Franschhoek. And that was a Huguenot village. I had never heard of the Huguenots. There was a Huguenot monument, which was very interesting. There was a globe, and a woman was standing on this globe. She was not well dressed or anything. She had no crown. She was not a queen or a princess.
Elle n'avait pas de couronne, elle n'était ni reine ni princesse.
She was an ordinary peasant woman. In one hand, she had broken chain. In the other hand, she had an open Bible. And behind her was a triune arch. And on top of the arch was a cross and a crown. Who is this woman? What does the Bible have to do with her broken chain? She's symbolizing liberty, freedom, which was the heart of the French Revolution. But she was 2 centuries before the French Revolution.
Mais elle était là-bas 2 siècles avant la Révolution française.
So I began to investigate what does the Bible have to do with political liberty. And that led me to begin to appreciate what God had done in France. Although France crushed what God was doing here, the impact of the French Huguenots all over the world, including South Africa, began to dawn upon me. Scotland became free through John Knox and Andrew Melville and other reformers because of what the Huguenots wrote here in France.
De ce que les Huguenots ont fait ici en France.
So, in 1 hour or so, we will paint the big historical picture to put France and the French Revolution in that big picture context. And the objective is for you to begin to connect the dots of the ministry that God has given you, to see that in the next 100 years, France can actually be transformed and turned into a blessing to the whole world. So 5 revolutions have shaped the last 1,000 years of world history. 2 meta-historians describe these 5 revolutions. One of them is Eugene Rosenstock Hussey. His big book is called Out of Revolution. The second meta-historian is Jacques Barjun. His book is called From Dawn to Decadence. So he's covering from 1500 to 2000. 1500 is dawn, 2000 is decadence of the Western civilization. Hussey covers about 800 years of history from 12th century to 20th century. At least First World War, but a little bit of Second World War. The 5th revolution was the 1917 Marxist revolution in Russia. Thousands of things are called revolutions, but both of these historians say that a real revolution is like a major earthquake. When you have a major earthquake, it has aftershocks. So 1917 communist revolution in Russia, led by Lenin, Stalin, etc. It was a major revolution
a été une révolution
because
majeure.
its after effects continue till today. China became communist. In Latin America, there are a lot of communists, Cuba, Honduras, Venezuela. Even in India, we had some states where the communists captured power. So these communist revolutions had begun as ideas written by Karl Marx. Ideas are communicated in words. That's what Jesus says, that the word is a seed. When you sow seed, it bears fruit. And if it's a poisonous seed, its fruit is death and destruction. So the communist revolution has been a very destructive revolution. Even though it was driven by ideals like equality, economic equality, social justice. So China began to prosper only when it revised its economic ideas, even if it has not revised its political ideas. So the 5th revolution is the Marxist revolution in 1917 in Russia. Before that, the major revolution was in France, 1789, the French Revolution. Now, this was a major revolution. It impacted the world. The secular universities still talk about the French ideals of freedom and equality and brotherhood, fraternity. The French Revolution was very important because it inspired the South American, Latin American Revolution. That you know that the French Revolution, although it was talking about fraternity, brotherhood, it became a reign of terror. The revolutionaries described their own rule as rule of terror because they were killing each other, terrorizing each other. And therefore, Paris became such a chaotic place that Napoleon was able to take over Paris and establish his dictatorship. Napoleon inspired Simón Bolívar. Simón Bolívar was born in Venezuela, which was a Spanish colony, and he studied in Venezuela.
Au Venezuela.
And he had come to Spain for military training to become a military general. He was so impressed by Napoleon Bonaparte's success that he came to France to watch the inauguration and the grandeur. And when France invaded first Portugal and then Spain, because Napoleon made his brother the ruler of Spain, and Spain revolted. So Napoleon marched into Spain, and that put an end to the Spanish Empire, which was called Holy Roman Empire. But that attack on Spain gave an idea to Simón Bolívar that the Spanish colonies in Latin America, they can revolt against the Spanish Empire and become free, independent nations. So France, through Napoleon, inspired the Latin American Revolution. And they created Gran Colombia. Simón Bolívar created Gran Colombia, which was like United States of South America. But the experiment didn't work. Bolivia is named after Bolivar. He was the president of Gran Colombia. He got very frustrated and resigned. In his resignation letter, he wrote that we revolutionaries have been plowing the ocean. When you plow the land, you can get some crop. You plow the ocean, you don't get anything. So we have wasted a lot of blood, and it has all been futile. Now, interestingly, the two phrases, reign of terror and plowing the ocean, both those phrases come from prophet Amos. Israel, as a human effort for political power, political success, created reign of terror and saw that the human effort was futile. You're trying to create brotherhood through revolution, but you create a reign of terror. Your vision is liberty, but within 10 years, by 1899, you have created one of the worst dictatorships in France. Tyranny of Napoleon Bonaparte, which throws the whole of Europe into terrible wars. This is called humanism. So the whole Enlightenment humanism, secular humanism, became terrible, inhuman tyranny, crushing humanity, crushing human rights. So our secular universities still present French Revolution as a great idealistic movement, because the ideals were very great: liberty, fraternity, equality. Our professors never told us that these ideals were stolen from the Bible. They were plagiarized. And without the Bible, without Christian education, you cannot have those ideals. We'll come back to it in a few minutes.
Nous y reviendrons dans quelques minutes.
So, the Marxist revolution was the fifth revolution. The French revolution was the fourth revolution.
La révolution française était la quatrième révolution.
Great ideals, but putting faith in man and creating disaster. The third revolution was 10 years before the French Revolution in North America. This was Revolutionary War, in which the 13 colonies in North America rebelled against the British Empire. And that experiment worked. It created USA, which did create liberty. And France actually donated the Statue of Liberty to honor the American Revolution. So the liberty and equality. American Revolution began in 1775. In 1776, 4th of July, the Congress, the Continental Congress, it passed the resolution, the Declaration of Independence.
La déclaration de l'indépendance.
That we affirm that all men are created equal and are endowed by their Creator with inalienable rights of life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. So, while the French Revolution was a disaster, even if secular universities don't admit that, relatively the American Revolution was successful, even though slavery continued and needed a civil war later. Racism continued and needed a civil rights movement under Martin Luther King Jr. So this is 1775 when the American Revolution begins. And the American Revolution inspired the French Revolution. But also the American Revolution misled the French revolutionaries, and I'll talk about it. Nevertheless, it was a major revolution which had many aftershocks And one of the aftershocks was the French Revolution. The fourth revolution was the English.